morning.
Morning.
How we doing?
Hey, Mike. David Moore, Dallas Morning News. After seeing Dak in practice these last 2 days and talking with the medical staff today, can you say now that you're pretty comfortable that he's going to play on Sunday?
Well, I mean, I think we would be preempted, jump ahead of the full week preparation. But yeah, everything looks like he's on track for that. I thought he had a really good day yesterday, and we all know what today is, and tomorrow will be our last full speed work. So once we complete that, we'll check off on it. If you feel like you need to get ahead of yourself, go for it.
You talked about the timing and needing to see the timing. How is that look with the receivers?
Well, it's not as much as just the particular timing with the receivers. It's the timing, throwing around a pass rush, having the bodies flying around them, and stepping into the throws, not being able to step into throws. All those things, and you only get that in your teamwork. So I thought his teamwork was pretty good yesterday, really good.
Steiner Dixon with the AP. He said yesterday that there was no plan to play him last week, and he seemed kind of comfortable with the plan all along. Like maybe he didn't really push it to play as the weeks went by. Was that kind of your take on it? He was sort of following the medical and not really pushing you guys to get out there?
I think so. I think obviously having the doctor's appointment every Monday, Tuesday, the information to come out of that, set the plan for the week, make sure we hit the target every day, and just like he does everything, he just attacks that plan for the day, and he did that throughout the whole process. So that was the plan last week, and and that's why once we got over the hurdle of where he was, we felt like he was in the clear to throw as much as he could, because you got to build up the reps. That's why we threw as much as we did Friday, Saturday, and then again Sunday night.
Dave Lockmer, Cowboys Radio. If you play Dak, do you anticipate Will Career being active? Keep three quarterbacks.
That'd be a challenge. We got some things going on right now. It's when you get to this point of the week, and the biggest challenge is always in special teams, and John Fossil does an outstanding job keeping everybody ready, kind of really develop our young players. We have the young player meetings today and again tomorrow, but the special teams will really factor into that spot, and that's always the challenge. So you look at Dalton Schultz. I mean, I look for him to go. He practiced full, but we'll continue to let him finish the week. But do you take a fourth tight end, or so all those conversations are on the table right now, and frankly, that's why we always huddle after the Saturday practice. Once all the work's in, then we make those decisions.
Michael Gelkin, Dallas Morning News. After the third subluxation to his shoulder yesterday, Matt Valesco done for the year, is it fair to say? And what did you think about just the way that he was able to push through the injury as long as he did?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, when the medical staff's ready to make that call and set that date, that's really the time for that specific of an answer. But I mean, I just feel terrible for Matt. I thought he was making such excellent progress. You could just see his development, and he's I really like the way he's wired. His length is exceptional. So he was making excellent progress here on the left side. So once we get the full diagnosis and set that, we can get into specifics of it. But it's very, very unfortunate for a young man like that, because this is the time of year you see these guys really starting to grow.
Todd Archer of the ESPN. What's the fallout aspect with him in terms of, okay, do you look at Peters getting some tackle work now with Ball as a guy?
Well, I mean, Jason Peters has been working, tackle and guard. So I mean, Jason's been working exclusively on the left side. So, and we've been, keeping Josh primarily on the right side, just to get the reps right, and just as far as how you roll your 8 players, as far as expectations going into a game on Sunday. So, yeah, as far as the reps for Jason and the focus, we'll still focus on the left side.
The number of offensive penalties was obviously far too high for you guys' liking week 1, but since then it's really gone down, including pre-snap.
Yeah.
What have you made of progress in that specific area?
Well, I think when you look at them, I think early, you had some moving parts. It's you don't like it. You try to work and prepare for it, but a lot of the times it happens, and you know, what I'm talking about is when you have changes in your offensive line, you know, the cadence, you know, just being in sequence with the communication, because, you know, you go back to our first game, I thought the communication was overdone. You know, we were over communicating, and I think we were probably overcoached that fact, you know, of how we wanted to be better, you know, in the pre-snap. So I think just seeing the continuity of the offensive line playing together, so those type of penalties are, you know, hopefully are gone. So that's part of it, and you know, I just think like anything, you know, the more your perimeter players, you know, the shifts and emotions, and you know, it's definitely tighter today than it was, you know, in weeks 1 and 2. So that's an improvement, and then. Because the pre-snap penalties, there's no excuse for those. I mean, those are the things. That's why we practice, and you know, and we do want to be specific, and you know, play with excellent mind speed and all those coachable attributes. But you know, I think you know your offense should. You know, you hope you come out of training camp that way, but that wasn't the case with us with all the changes we had, you know, right before the first game. So I think that's part of it. And the competitive penalties, you know, you just keep emphasizing, coaching them. That's why you do the fundamental drills every week, and that's why we're in pads every week, because you know that's the other part of this too is you know, if you can keep preaching footwork and fundamentals and you don't practice in pads, I don't know how you improve your football team. So you know, player safety to me is not playing in pads, practicing in pads. So I think that's another part of it, and our guys do a good job with that. I mean, their workload capacity, like their GPS score was outstanding yesterday. So those kind of things are the things that they're really the details that lead to improvement.
Along those lines, does that speak to Terrence Steele's maturation, that he had the week 1 that he had from a penalty standpoint and has dialed it in across all categories since then?
I mean, that's a very good point. But Terrence Steele's, you know, one of the last guys I'd ever worry about, you know, as far as focusing on improving. I mean, I just look at the first time, you know, I got to see him in the rookie camp there, you know, the pandemic year, and he's just continued to impress since then. So very high character, you know, works his tail off, improves his body, you know, continuously, you know, from year 1 to now year 3. So I look for him just to continue to improve.
I know that Swift has missed some time, so it may be hard to discern how they alternate them. But do they use their backs a little bit like you use your backs? And can you just talk about their different styles and what challenges that presents?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Swift. I mean, when you watch the productivity, I mean, just the home run runs. I mean, his ability to hit the hole, you know, his explosiveness, you know, matchup coming out of the backfield, you know, all those things play to his skill set. But you know, he's been the big player for them. And then Jamal does everything, you know, he does everything very good. I mean, he's a very good instinctive inside runner, excellent pass protector, you know, brings great energy to their offense in their football team, and he's a pretty darn good receiver too. So he's a guy that can play on all 3 downs. You know, Swift, someone that they're going to try to create more big play opportunities for him. So I mean, it's very important, obviously, to know which back's in the game.
Mike.
Go ahead, Dory.
Mike Drury, Epstein, Yahoo Sports. Mike had talked yesterday about wanting to make self-adjustments after the Eagles game, sitting down with coaches and looking to make those. What type of adjustments do you see that as, and how helpful is it to have a game like y'all had last week so early in the season?
Well, last week's game is only helpful if we improve on the things we need to improve on. So, and that's really what self-scout's for. I mean, it goes on. It's continuous. You know, and actually, Dan Quinn did an excellent job having a full self-scout for Micah. I think they met Wednesday afternoon, and it was good for him. It's good for all of our players. So, and you know, obviously went through the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that's how you grow. So, and you know, obviously he is an elite player that gets a ton of attention, and we got to continue to, you know, give him opportunities to be successful. But so, you know, just looking at the concepts he's been doing, ones he's been doing very well, the ones that, you know, we know that they're really working on, and just make sure that we have the change-ups and the curveballs in there for him.
You guys have devoted a lot of time to improving on 3rd down and all that comes with that. What does Dak's return do for you guys in that space of just, you know, his presence breathing life into that area? Yeah,
I think, you know, just, you know, Dak's, you know, he's our leader. He's your starting quarterback. So all those things go into this. I don't think it's just, you know, I'm not being critical of your question. Only it's just 3rd down. You know, I don't say that okay, now 3rd down's going to be better. The goal is for the whole offense to be better. And no, I think like anything in this league, you get what you emphasize. And that's why we've been emphasizing third down. We've been really pushing a little more first and second down this week, just because that's another area we need to work on. So we just keep trying to move the numbers to where we feel like we need a little more work, and that's really for the whole offense. But I think just having him in the director's chair, gives us an opportunity to improve.
Going back to your Green Bay days, the fullback was a pretty big part of your scheme. Haven't been on the roster much here, and there's a lot of teams in the league that don't have a fullback on the roster. What's your take on how the fullback has evolved as part of the offensive scheme in this league?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know too many offensive coaches that don't like a fullback, and the fullback position is the personnel director's nightmare because they don't play on special teams, and that's just really the facts of the matter. That's always the challenge. I mean, one year in Green Bay we had 3 fullbacks on our 53-man roster, but they all were contributors on special teams, and that's where the fullback position gets gets lost, and I think it's just. I've always looked at the fullback position and the tight end position kind of as one because the way you want to play. Because I think offense really comes down to 2-back offense, 1-back offense, or no-back offense, and that's really how I look at offensive schematic design. And I love having a fullback because I think the fullback gives you an opportunity to puncture the defensive front in more lead type runs and so forth. And the best play ever in the history of football is the lead inside zone. I mean, that's been well documented. You should be writing that down, David. There you go. So, but I think those types of things you always want part of your football team, not only just for your offense, but your defense needs it. Defense needs to train against it. So I'm a big believer in 2-back offense. And 2-back offense, kind of went out of the league here in probably the last 10 years, but it's coming back more and more the last couple of years. So, and that's just part of the evolution of schematic, focus and tendencies and trends, and we're all on top of that. But I would always, if you just say, hey, what do you want your offense to look like, I would always want a fullback that's up on the 48 each and every week, because there's always points in the game where you just got to go run the football downhill, and you always want that threat to the defense.
When you came here, you were clear about, Kellen's going to keep calling the plays, and the fact that you haven't had one on the roster generally here, is it more about kind of the scheme that you joined here, or is it, or you?
Well, I think it's just more in staying in tune and being disciplined with the personnel acquisition. I think it's, and this is just my opinion, and I may be totally, the minority in this outlook, but when I look at the draft in veteran free agency, the most important part of it is what value does that player bring to your roster, and I think we can all get into pigeonholing. I need this kind of guy. I need that kind of guy. I need that kind of, because when you know, I'm not saying it's black and white, but I think you really pigeonhole yourself if you just say, oh, he doesn't fit or he doesn't fit. Because if you're in these conversations, especially when you're down there picking 25th through 32nd every year, you got to take best player on the board. And now we all have measurables of what we want the overall team to look like, and you want long, twitch, speed, and all, we all get that, and our team looks that way, and I love that about our team. But boy, if you're passing up a really good football player because he doesn't fit your system, and these are conversations that I've had since 2006, then we got to take a hard look at our system. Does Turpin fit your system? Hell yeah. Oh boy, I thought you were a West Coast offensive guy. All your receivers are 6'2" and more. So I mean, and that's the things you got to really work through, because when you get these perimeter players that are dynamic, my question is always, does he do 2 things? He can't just be a special teams player. He just can't be a receiver and so forth, especially younger players. So those kind of things, these are the conversations that we have. And I think it's important, because in that approach, it gives you more attempts at the plate to get your talent level up. And that's all coaches really want at the end of the day. We want to have as much talent to develop and as much variation as we can, especially throughout the course of a season.
I've got a bit of a scheduling quirk or anomaly, whatever you want to call it. You obviously have 4 straight NFC North teams. Do you feel like you're back in Green Bay going against Detroit, Minnesota, Chicago?
Because I'm sure it's because of the bye week. I didn't even realize it until it was brought up here the other day. So I just when you're in the season, I mean it's hard to keep track of the dates. I got my 13-year-old's going to be 14 on Saturday, so I got that day. So so the 22nd, but coincidence. I don't know. I have no idea, but yeah, it's. A lot of familiarity. I recognize uniforms, I'll say that.
Does it make it easier in the sense that you're going to see each of these games when you put on the film from last week's game?
Yeah, well, I think that's a good point because you look at the way their games are scheduled. So, I mean, and it's nice to see them play common opponents. Obviously the London game, the Giants and the Packers, I had a chance to watch that because, obviously that was early in the morning. So, I mean, you always try to watch as many games of teams that you haven't played in a while. See, I don't really worry about the division games because we put so much time and energy in that back in June and then again in training camp. So, the division games are kind of always working because you really set all your installations to your division opponents. So like when we install the runs and install one, well, the defenses that we're working on are the ones we're expecting our division to play. So you feel like you always have that part. But, when you haven't played the Lions in, 3 or 4 years and there's only 6 players left on the roster, that's a bigger challenge for your players. So, this is more about the uncommon opponent and trying to watch these guys as much as possible. And Chicago's got a new staff too. Minnesota's got a new staff, and we've played Minnesota the last 2 years. But this is going to be a totally different type of game when we get up there. So, and we haven't played Green Bay since I've been here. So, and that's a different team than the one I coach. So, I just stay on top of the uncommon opponent part because I think that's a pretty good challenge for your team.
All righty.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.